Hello, this is Midwest Mystic, and this is going to be a slightly different type of video than what I've been normally putting out. I mean, in all fairness, I've been putting out all sorts of different types of videos, but this one is just going to be a quick rant that involves the topic of ownership of as it applies to software in particular. So I just do want to give a little disclaimer here. This could get a little political, but I just want you to know I do respect your opinion, whether I agree with it or not, right? I feel like people are just at each other's throats way too much when it comes to opinions. You can be left or right, I don't care. I value it. We can't let one side have more power because the scales will tip in one direction and then we end up with a dictatorship. So I hope we can all agree on that. So enough of it. Anyway. So my journey began back when I was 12 years old. I was faking sick from school one day, and this was back when there was dial-up internet. So I had to be very careful because my parents were both at work and I knew they were going to be calling me. And if they knew the phone line was tied up for an extended period of time, there's a good chance that I'm on the internet and I'm not resting like I'm supposed to be. Well, during that time, I stumbled on a website called newgrounds.com. Now, for some of you people that are my age, which I'm not saying my age, but if you got your start with something like Macromedia Flash, for example, then you're probably about my age and we'll just keep that a secret. Anyway, back in the old days, when you bought software, you owned a physical piece of software. I remember I downloaded the 30-day trial for this bad boy, and I was just hooked. Like, that's where it all started. I started with ActionScript 1.0, right? Like, this is as old as it gets. I believe it was Flash 4. And shortly after, Flash MX came out, and then that eventually became what I ended up using, but it was a 2.0 version. But I remember I saved up so much money. I think it was like $175, and for a 12 or 13-year-old, that was hard to get your hands on, right? I had to do so many lawn mowings and everything else, and I just kept downloading 30-day trials. And I can't remember. There was something somebody had showed me that there was kind of a way to get around it, but I did want to own my own physical copy. So I remember ordering it. It came in the mail. It had this flash box. I was so excited. And then that's where it all began. And it was great because I still have that CD till this day. I would have to go dig for it, but I certainly have it. And that's how all software was like back then. You know, you would go back to Best Buy, for example. I remember going there and just looking at all the awesome software. And you just don't see that anymore. And when you do see it, it's never a box. It's always just this key card-like thing that activates a license, and you bring it home and it requires an internet connection. Back then, you didn't need an internet connection. None of that. It's just seems like there is a point in time, and these dates could be wrong, sure. So I believe it was around 2007 or so. I just lived somewhere and I just didn't have internet. I didn't have TV. I didn't have nothing. I just played on an NES and hung out with friends, and just had my apartment, and I pretty much disappeared from the internet entirely. I had nothing to do with it. I missed the whole start of YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And when I came back in about roughly 2011 or so, it was just a completely different world. Because I figured, well, I'm kind of tired of getting my ass kicked by, just working at a gas station and doing factory jobs and wiping asses and stuff. I didn't want to keep doing that. I figured it is time. Let's just go to school, get the degree, and be a software engineer. And that's what I did, and it turned out to be very lucrative, and I still do that to this day. But what I noticed is when I got the software, there was never anything like a disk or anything. I never had it installed. It was always, you had to have a license for it. And it makes sense for certain things, sure. But there was no way to say I wanted a copy of Photoshop and I had a copy of Photoshop. It became suddenly I have to pay a monthly subscription just to use Photoshop. And that was just so foreign to me, but I didn't give it much thought. I'm like, it's just a new licensing model. It can't really, it just can't be a permanent thing, right? But boy, was I wrong. It just seems like everything requires a license these days. You have to pay a monthly subscription. Hell, I've heard that in Teslas or some kind of fancy vehicle like that. You have to pay a monthly subscription in order to have heated seats. And I don't mean to get all conspiracy theory like with the whole, Klaus Schwab economic forum, you will own nothing and you will be happy. But the direction software is going is really starting to feel that way. It really does seem like there is a push to make things be like you won't own anything. You don't own anything anymore. You're just going to have everything out on the cloud. You don't even need a personal computer anymore. I was shocked because my youngest son got in trouble, and I took the Xbox from him. And that Xbox is actually sitting right next to me, and I hadn't played Xbox in years, but I figured, well, while he's grounded from it, I'm going to try it out. And then I noticed this thing called cloud gaming. And here I was playing Doom Eternal, and it was not installed on my Xbox. While that's cool and all, that's a little freaky when you think about it. Because that means you could own something, you paid money for it, you have, your quote-unquote license, but then they decide, hey, you know what, you don't own this anymore. This happened to people with Disney or something like that. There's some Disney movies that people had purchased and they had the streaming rights to it. Not to stream it, but to play it and as a stream. And then Disney just changed their mind, and then suddenly they don't have their Disney movies. It just seems just so it's hard to place words to it, but it's very frustrating that this is the direction that things are going. I'm not saying we have to go back to the days where you purchased software and it came in a box and you had discs and everything like that. But it almost seems like it would be slightly better if they did, because this way when I know it, I buy it, it's sitting in my home. Whether it gets destroyed or not, that becomes my problem. I mean, one advantage is obviously, let's say something, God forbid, something happens and my house gets destroyed. Well, I would still have the license and I could just go download it. Sure, that's great. But why can't I also own a physical copy? It just seemed really, I don't know. It just feels too hand-holdy, and it just seems like we're putting too much faith in the cloud and everything else. And this goes beyond, some things make sense, right? That some things do make sense to have it, a monthly subscription, especially if you're making use of, say, the cloud, like you're using some kind of software as a service. While that works and all, I can understand that, you should have the option to always have an on-premise or a cloud version. Your on-premise version, you're kind of off on your own and you get limited support, but you can have the cloud version and you get more support because it's on their network, but you probably have to pay more. There's a tool, and I'm going to leave it nameless where I work, where it has the most complex licensing model. If you have a set of users and they need to access this data, they have to pay this much. But if they also need access to update or read this data, they need to have this additional license. So you also have to be careful on how you design the software, because if your software is using some kind of service account and it's referencing a bit of data that's, off on one corner, and it references it, but the person viewing it doesn't have access to it, you're breaking compliance. And this is a really huge, multi-billion-dollar industry that runs this thing. And it's just frustrating. I guess I don't have any culmination, but I just kind of wish there's some things, were probably best left the way they were. And I think ownership is another one of those things. I'm probably going to have to go on a rant on the right to repair, right? That's like you have to pay a license in order to repair things. You can't legally open certain pieces of technology up. The way I look at it, it's my money. I pay for it. And unless I'm paying you for a, quote-unquote service, I should be able to do whatever the hell I want when I purchase it and it's sitting on my lap in my property. Anyway, thanks for listening. And I will try to keep these rants short because, I'm not sure how interested people will actually be in these. So if you disagree with me, or if you can think of a better reason that we're going in this direction, that no, there should never be an on-premise versus cloud, I can think of one argument, is there maybe is a problem with people pirating. Sure, I can get behind that argument. But at the same time, there are solutions to that as well. You could create, a proper licensing system so that way when you validate it, you'd have to reach out to them to get another validation. I believe there is one tool that does it like that. It's not really a tool, but it's a FL Studio plugin, and I'm drawing a blank. And I actually agree with what they have, because you can actually request to still receive the box, and you get license keys. Now, if you switch machines, you just tell them, hey, I'm switching machines, I just need a new license key, and they respond instantly. And they're like, here you go, we just opened up a few more for you. I don't think that that's so much to ask for, and I think that that's actually, they're doing it the right way. So, okay, this time for real, ending the video. Thank you for watching.